Hello and well met. This is Laren with the Fantasy Grounds Academy. Today I'm going to talk about importing tables. Done lots of different shows with this feature, and I think that some people don't want to hear all my blah 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 story related stuff. So I'm just going to focus on actually importing tables into Fantasy Grounds. And what I'm going to use is an AI generative tool for ChatGPT in this case, so that it will make the process a little quicker. And it will format the text so that you're not having to massage or edit the text in a text editor. So formerly or previously, I would use a program like Sublime or Notepad++, which is still valid. And I'll have those links in the description because not everyone likes AI. I get that. The other thing is that it is a lot more quicker and a lot easier to do it within a generative AI tool in most cases. So that's why I'm showing this. So essentially over here in the right is the browser. And again, this is just a overlay on top of a Fantasy Grounds window. It's not in Fantasy Grounds, just so you know that. This is a tables section, which you'll find in Fantasy Grounds in most games and genres and different settings and types. So like Pathfinder, Call of Cthulhu. So the table are usually in each rule set. It's pretty universal. And there is a way that you can create a table from scratch. So if you click this green plus button, it's going to pull up a blank table that you can fill out by hand. So you can copy and paste each entry, give it a label, change the parameters, that sort of thing. So you could do it manually. Or if you want to import it, you can also click on this little hamburger menu, which is the import text, and you have different options for importing. So this kind of depends on how your text is going to be fed into Fantasy Grounds, and also the formatting is very important. So down at the bottom, you have delimited, and that just means separated by either a comma, a pipe, a colon, or a semicolon. And the reason they have this is so that you can differentiate between the different entries. So I typically use the pipe symbol because that is the least used symbol in a sentence structure or in paragraphs or anything like that. You can just do a simple table where it just has a number and then an item after it. But if you have any, that's good for simple things like just a big list of single word or maybe 3-word items. But if you're going to have something more complex, something with range, that sort of thing, I suggest using a delimited table, and then pick your delimiter of choice. You can use commas. So if you're using a comma separated value from like a spreadsheet from Excel, you could do that, and then you could just have comma separations for like large list fields and that sort of thing. And then also you have column headers in the first row, so you can say, yeah, this first row is going to have the headers, and then the table ranges in the first column would be on the far left, and that would be your number values. So that's how you basically set up the table depending on what type of tables you're going to import. So in the browser, I have the basically I have this browser window, and in that window is a list of different items that could be used in a table. And what I'm going to do is copy and paste that into ChatGPT and clean up the text so that it can be formatted easier. So that's easier for me to copy and paste the actual data into this importing tool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop up those windows individually so you can actually see what I'm doing. So I'm going to bring open the browser. So this is a website called Chartopia, and these guys have been around for a while. I believe they're from Australia. They're really nice guys. I actually talked to them, and I think we were going to do a show with them at one point. But basically, it's a huge repository of tables and lists that people have made, and then stuff that they started with. So I'm going to take all this information here and copy and paste it. So I'll just put, this will be my header up here. So I'm going to copy this information. And in the import section in Fantasy Grounds, what I'm going to do is bring up the import tool and I'll just paste in the title. So this is a D&D 5e AI 5e race D6 table. I don't know why it's called that, but I'm just going to put that there. So that's the actual title of the table. I might change that depending on what this is. And then when you are going to copy this, I'm going to take all this information here and copy it, and then I'm going to go over to ChatGPT, and what I want to do is take and format the table. So it kind of already has an idea of the template. So this is my rollable list example. So I'll say using the rollable, and I call them rollable lists because ChatGPT, for some reason, if you say table, it wants to make a formatted table with all the lines and stuff. I don't want that. I just want the text. And that's an important part of this import function, is getting the text to a point where it's clean, it's just text, no markup, no bold letters, nothing like that. You don't need all that stuff. So I'll say use the rollable list template above to clean up and format the text below. And then I'm going to hit Ctrl+V. So that's going to be the text. I want to see if it can handle it. So this is the, this is the title, D6 AI personality trait. What I want to do here is make sure that that header is differentiated. So I want to go back to take a look at the table again, make sure it's kind of matches what I'm doing. So yeah, so this is the header part up here. So this is the header, and then these are all the entries, and then on the left is the actual rollable number or the value or the range. So what I'm going to do is go back into Fantasy Grounds, and I'm going to paste that information in here. So let's see what happens. So this is the information. If you do it this way, it's not going to come out right because this information here is all miscombobulated. It's not going to work. So if you just straight up copy and paste the data without doing any text editing or formatting, it's not going to turn out. I'll show you what this looks like. So I'll hit import, and it kind of did it, but if you really look carefully here, let's see if I can move this over. Yeah, so this is all messed up. There's only 6 results, and what it did is it took every single line and placed them on a separate line. So that is not what you want to do with tables if you're going to use the import tool. So I'm going to go ahead and close that, and I'm going to right click and delete that table. It didn't turn out at all. So I'm going to go ahead and hit another import. This time though, I'm going to take the text that was formatted in ChatGPT. So if I come over here, and I'm going to go ahead and hit the enter button, I'm going to see what the formatting turns out like. Yeah, so this is exactly what you would want to see to differentiate between the different columns and rows. It's using these pipes as a separator. So when you copy and paste this into Fantasy Grounds, you're going to get all the correct columns and rows. So this is a way to kind of speed up the process. You can do this yourself manually if you wanted to. But what I'm going to do is take this text, and I'm going to copy it and paste it into Fantasy Grounds. So I'll go back to Fantasy Grounds, and I'm going to hit Ctrl+V. So that has all these separations with the pipe symbol, and this first column or first row is going to be the title essentially, or the categories, and then the table range is going to be these numbers on the left. And then of course I need to put the title name or the table name back. So AI rollable list will say. So this came originally from this website. And you could do this with PDFs or whatever sources you have. So I want to go back into Fantasy Grounds, paste this in there, and that's the name of the title. And I think I'm going to take out these little periods. I don't know if Fantasy Grounds likes that punctuation in table names, so I'm just going to take those out in case. And instead of AI rollable list, I'll just say like NPC something. I don't know. You can change it to whatever you want. So let's go ahead and click on import. Let's see what happens. And it looks like it's set it up as, let's see. Oh, it did it as a 1d12, which is fine. It could have did it as, 1 through 6, because there's only 6 entries, but it set it up as a d12, which means it's still evenly spaced out. So you could fix this by just changing the numbers if you want, or you can do whatever you need to make this table the correct way. But anyway, so this is 1d12, and this has all of the columns and all the rows. And then all you have to do here is click on the roll and see what you get. So personality is I love manipulating people. Bond, I am in eternal gratitude for the one who freed me from my captivity. Ideal is we are the next step of human evolution. This is not a choice. And then the flaw is I despise my creator. Something like me should rule above them. So these are just the outcomes of that roll. So you can roll again and do something else. Just check out your work. Make sure it's working. Boy, howdy. I sure do love doing what people tell me to do. Bond, these fleshy creatures are so weak. I must protect them. Ideal, I like humans. They're so interesting. And then flaw, despite my programming, or maybe because of it, causing suffering just feels good. So this must be some kind of synthetic robot or something personality list. So this is a quicker way to do it. I'm telling you, doing it by hand takes a longer time. So if you learn how to master the text and how to set this stuff up in Fantasy Grounds, it gets a lot easier. There are also other options that I will list, and I'm going to move this over so you can actually see the table now because it was covered. So this is how it turned out, which is pretty nice. And then what we're going to do is take a look at a couple other things, and then we'll call it a show. So I wanted to first and foremost mention that learning how to use the formatted text fields in Fantasy Grounds is very useful. And there are shortcut keys. And these are listed in the basic actions on the Fantasy Grounds Atlassian. If you need to, I would make your own little like cheat sheet. So if I take all this text, including the shortcuts and this information here, it does do some HTML. So let's do this. I want to take this information from the text, formatted text fields. I'm going to actually put this in ChatGPT and have it resort it. And what will happen is a lot of times when you're importing from a website or from a PDF, you're going to get extra spacing and such. And if you use Ctrl+J, if you highlight the text, it'll break all of that formatting up, and you'll just have one big run-on sentence or a big paragraph, and you can reformat it to your heart's delight. So I want to go into Fantasy Grounds, but then I wanted to go back to ChatGPT. And what I'm going to do is ask it to reorganize the list of Fantasy Grounds text shortcuts into a simple text format. And then I'm just going to paste that stuff in here. So this all came from the Fantasy Grounds wiki, or the Atlassian guide. And here we go. So these are all the different main formatting types for Fantasy Grounds. And what I would do for yourself is make your own little guide, your own little, like, something that you will, until you get the hang of it, until you start getting used to the command. So you take all this stuff here And I'll just put this in Fantasy Grounds, so I don't have to keep going to the Atlassian website, you know, that sort of thing. So if you go into Fantasy Grounds, if I'll just bring up a story item in case, and then what I would do is make my own category, and we'll say text. We'll say Fantasy Grounds text formatting list or guide, I'll say, or something like that. And that's going to be the category of the story entries. And then I'll just make a new advanced story record. And we'll just, for right now, we'll just say text formatting shortcuts or something like that. And this will help when you're working in Fantasy Grounds, so you don't have to keep going back and forth between the website and Fantasy Grounds. So this is a text field that I've added. I'm going to hit Ctrl+V as in Victor. And as you can see, it preserved most of the formatting. But in Fantasy Grounds, you can right-click, go to Clean Up Text, and it kind of works like the Ctrl+J feature, which will join paragraphs with the next line. It gets rid of the extra spaces. And what I'm going to do here is do a little formatting. So I'm highlighting this top entry and hitting Ctrl+2, which is the header. And then for the subheadings, I'm going to hit Ctrl+B, highlighting the text here. And then these are just going to help you get used to writing and using Fantasy Grounds. So let me move this over so you can see what I'm doing. And this will help you when you go to create content in Fantasy Grounds a lot. So if you have something like this, or you can even take the images from the web page and put them in Fantasy Grounds, kind of make your own like developer conversion kind of homebrew kind of cheat list here. So it makes it easier for you when you're using this. And then you can just bookmark this down on the chat bar here, or the shortcut bar, so you can easily retrieve it later. So this is how you're going to do tables. There is one other table type. I'm not going to go through the whole tutorial because there's already a video on it. But I wanted to mention that if you're using CSV tables from like a spreadsheet, Matakiri has made a CSV table importer. There's a video on how to use it. There's a little bit of a command. Then you can bring in these tables as inline tables, so not rollable, but it's like a list. So if you wanted to do like a spell list or something a lot quicker, you can use this extension, which is free on the Fantasy Grounds Forge. There's a video that shows you how to use it. And once you understand how to use Excel and separate out your lists by the columns, and then you can export it as a CSV file, in which it will create these inline tables. And that makes it much easier to do than hand typing all this stuff in. So there's the other formatting of a different type of table. And when you're using the tables in Fantasy Grounds, there is a shortcut to start a table, which is remember the formatting list is, if you want to make a table block, it's Ctrl+6, which will just make one block. And then when you go into the table functions, you want to do Ctrl+ or Ctrl-. You can decrease or increase the column width. You can insert another, like a line in there. So that'll take a little bit, but you can't decrease it any smaller than the first size that you create. So in other words, when you create a table, that's basically the minimum width. You can always increase it. If you want to make it smaller after you've increased, you can decrease it, but you cannot make it smaller than the default size when it comes to formatting. So the cells will have to, the very basic part of the cells, like this part here, you can start with one and divide it up this many times manually. And then you can actually expand the width of those, but you can't make them any smaller than it's shown here. So that's one thing that I didn't care for formatted tables. But if you use a CSV import tool, it takes away a lot of copy and pasting. So if you want to save yourself some time, that's something you can do. So anyways, that's basically in a nutshell. You can copy and paste from almost any source and put it into a generative AI tool like ChatGPT, but then if you use Notepad++, you can also use it in there and try to format it and clean it up in here. So there's ways that you can do it without using ChatGPT. It's just going to take longer. So the whole idea for this video is to make this a lot cleaner and a lot, I would say a lot more fluid, and it doesn't take as long to do it. So it's kind of one of those things where you're trading time, and frustration for convenience, and then it depends on if you even like using AI and stuff. So kind of depends on that too. But anyways, I think I'll let you go. I don't want to make this video too long. I like to ramble on, and I'm just kind of giving you some ideas on how to increase your work and efficiency, and then also just giving the AI tools the correct formatting is important. So once you have the correct formatting for parsing into Fantasy Grounds, you give it that as a template, and then that's the output example that you're looking for. So it'll help with that. And what I use for tables is I always say rollable list, because if I say table, it's going to make a table. I'll say rollable list template. I don't say table at all. I learned over the months that it just, sometimes it won't do what you want. So what you want is a title, and then you want, I didn't mean to hit enter, but basically this is the template. So this is what you want. You want the number roll, the dice range numbers if possible, and then you want the results. And these little brackets here are just examples. You don't use the actual brackets. So here's what this comes out as if you're going to have multiple rows and columns. So once you give ChatGPT an example of the output and the type of formatting you want, then you can copy and paste different tables from different sources and have it sorted out for you. So that way, when you use the import tool in Fantasy Grounds, it's going to be a lot easier. So again, if you go to tables and you click on this hamburger menu, that's how you bring up the import tool. And then you have to set your parameters, give it a title, and then put your data in here and make sure that it's formatted properly so that it will pull it in correctly. I showed you in the beginning that it was not right because I just copied and pasted randomly without doing any formatting. That's not going to work. So take care, everyone. Have a good weekend. Enjoy your Sunday, and I'll see you around next time. Bye-bye.